Hey everybody, Tara Green here. I just want to talk about this beautiful special Venus star point that happens today, June the 4th. It happened earlier today, where Venus was sitting exactly in the heart of the sun. Now, this is the central peak of it, but it started on the 3rd and it will continue to the 6th, which is quite a rare thing for the Venus sitting in the heart of the sun, called a Cazimi. I love that word, which is a special golden blessing, to sit in the heart of the sun. So Venus has moved from being, she's invisible right now, she's moved from being the beautiful evening star. She will transition for traditionally 40 to 42 days behind the sun when she's invisible. But that depends really on where you live in the world. And then she will reappear in July as the beautiful morning star. So Venus in the heart of the sun at 14 degrees, 29, 30 minutes. Right in the middle degrees of Gemini, kind of accentuates the midpoint of Gemini, which is kind of a nice thing, because Gemini has two sides. So the key here, Gemini, there's lots of planets in Gemini. We have a stellium in Gemini. You can see that here. The sun, of course. And Mercury and Venus are also in a conjunction at 2 degrees of Gemini. So this is like a super powered Venus Cazimi. Mercury, of course, rules Gemini, and when Mercury is in the sign it rules, it's very happy. Jupiter in Gemini now for a whole year ahead is not so strong in Gemini because it's opposite the sign it rules, which is Sagittarius down here. But Sun-Venus conjunction, this cycle started in 2022, October 2022, or was it June 2022? And Venus makes this 8-pointed star. She makes a 5-pointed star over 8 years, okay? So her star points, which I've done another little video on, evolve over these time periods. So every time she makes a star point, so for example, it starts up at the north point here, it's an upward pointing pentagram, starts here. That was October 2022, and she follows along, right? So everybody worshiped Venus all over the world because she's the most beautiful, brightest star, and everybody associated her with ancient goddesses. So, for example, the oldest known written poem about Inanna. Inanna was the great goddess of Babylon. And in the myth, it's an explanation of Venus disappearing behind the sun. So in the myth, she goes into the underworld to visit her grieving sister, and that's partly an explanation about why she disappears. So anything that resonates with 40 days, like Jesus going to the desert for 40 days, or the Jewish people wandering the desert for 40 years, these are all encoded ways to help you remember Venus disappearing behind the sun. So every 19 plus months, she does one of her star points. So what you want to focus on is relationships and a new way of thinking. So when any planet sits in the heart of the sun, it's a golden blessing. It's like they're cauterized, they're reborn. It's like the phoenix, who burns up in the ashes. So it's a time to let go. Yes, if you wanted to light a little fire and put all the names of all your exes or everybody that you had made love with who wasn't really in love with you, this would be the perfect time to do that. It's really, really necessary to do that. My husband and I did that when we first met. We both knew we had to do that. We had to create a totally clean slate before we could really engage in our relationship. So in the tarot, Gemini is associated with the lovers, surprisingly enough. And I know I remembered that I had studied astrology before I studied tarot, so it was a big shock to me, how could Gemini be associated with the lovers, But it's all about complementary polarities. And so we tend to get into the oppositions, the divisions, the projections. It's about, it's your fault, it's your problem, and not seeing our shadow side. And that's what we need to integrate. So this is a kind of alchemical, sacred marriage, this aspect, Venus and the sun coming together. Apollo, you could call the sun god as well. So Aphrodite. And interestingly enough, I met a woman this weekend who I'd never met before, and her name was Aphrodite. So, astrology is real. And what you think about, you attract. So you want to think, this is Gemini, open your mind, think differently, think outside the box. See another person's point of view. It opens up your mind to a kind of childlike innocence and wonder. I always think of Paul McCartney as like the supreme example of Gemini. I think he's turning 82 this year, still rocking and rolling. And it's all about communication. It's all about debate. It's all about, opening your mind. So lots of twinning, lots of duos, lots of new partnerships, doing two things at once. Gemini is very restless, so your mind is going to be doing overtime. So it may be really hard right now to get your mind to be still. So this is really where you have to remember to breathe. Gemini rules the lungs. So remember breath work. And while Jupiter's in Gemini, I'm predicting, holotropic breath work is going to be super popular again this year. So you can see on the chart, I've drawn in some extra aspects here, and you can see there's also a 6-pointed star going on there. So it's not that you can see Venus making this pentagram, upward pointing pentagram. It's what she traces out in the sky, and it makes a fractal rose pattern. So any number 5 is related to Venus, and again in the tarot, that is the Hierophant. And in the deck that I use, the Hierophant shows Isis, or the goddess, standing in front of the male authority, right? So for all of you Geminis, of course, this is your year. All the planets in Gemini, Venus in Gemini, yes, there's definitely love and doing what you love to do. And Venus rules Taurus, and so for Tauruses it's good, and she rules Libra, so for Libras it's good, but it's good for all air signs because this is happening in an air sign. So of course, Libra, Aquarius, Gemini, they all get the benefits. So here is the card of the Lovers. Whoops, in the tarot. There you go, the Lovers. And so it is a kind of alchemical marriage. This is the sacred marriage card. This is the higher octave of the Lovers. So Venus in the heart of the sun. Now, this will last, like I said, a very rare long time. So this is a perfect time to, write down what you love to do, what makes you shine the brightest, where your life needs to be resurrected, and really see this as a time of new beginnings. And this Venus sitting in the heart of the sun, they're going to move ahead in degrees. They're going to stay together at 15 degrees, and then they're going to still be together on the new moon on the 6th, which is at 16 degrees, 18 minutes of Gemini. That new moon is at 8:38 a.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time, and then the moon conjuncts Venus like an hour later, basically. So they're going to stay connected, but it's interesting, they're moving up. So the 14th, and we always count up a degree, the 15th and the 16th or 17th degrees of Gemini are all very powerfully impacted, right? Okay, so you can see also another interesting thing I want to point out here is that 14th degree of Gemini is opposite the U.S. rising sign or ascendant, which is 13 Sagittarius. And it's also opposite what's called the Great Attractor at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So literally, this is very much a sign that you can attract whatever you want. So you can see Gemini is also squaring that middle degree of Virgo. So if you're born right in the middle of Virgo, if you're born in the middle of Sagittarius or have planets there, if you're born in the middle degrees of Pisces, and you can see Saturn is there. So Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, is helping to make things real. The irony about Saturn and Pisces is the reality planet in the unreal sign. So really think long and hard about your words, about what feeds you, about how you communicate, how you think. In the tarot, the Magician, Mercury, is the first card in the zodiac. So the ability to use your mind to create whatever it is you desire. So this is what it's all about, using your mind. Power of the Magician, Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, to create what you want. So think about this, really take your time. Now also on the Cazimi, the moon is in Taurus, and that is Venus' sign. So again, today on the 4th, it's more powerful. And then the moon moves into Gemini on the 5th at 4:36 a.m., getting ready for that new moon. And a new moon is always a new beginning. So this is like a super new moon, super new beginning. It is really important to think about your own astrology chart and where these degrees are. And if you need my help to give you a very in-depth reading, you can get in touch with me at taratarot.com. So enjoy the blessings of Venus in the heart of the sun. Have a great, it's called a Cazimi, sending you many, many blessings. Okay, speak to you soon.